Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. I'm Robin, and I know I haven't been here for a second, but that's neither here nor there. I'm here now with you. And we're gonna have a big old video. I'm gonna give you my best. I'm gonna give you my worst. Blair's gonna give you his drinking. I'm gonna give you everything in between of 2024. We're just gonna talk about it real quick. I have a couple of things here that I really loved. I'm going to talk about some things that I did not love, some things that I wish I had loved, and things that maybe surprised me a little. I didn't expect to enjoy them as much as I did. So we're just going to get into it. We're going to start from the worst and work our way up to the best. We're going to leave off on a good note. And then we're going to leave all of these books here in 2024, especially the worst books, because I'm not bringing these with me into 2025. You know, let's leave all those books behind. So without further ado, let's get into the worst books. These are in no particular order, but I will try to see if I can maybe rank them in a little bit of the worst. So starting off this list is a popular book talk book. That's where I heard about it and I got intrigued. And then I buddy read it with a friend of mine and we both had a terrible time. And that is Gothicana by Runix. Gothicana. Terrible. I don't know how y'all are going up for this book. And if it's one of your best books of all time or of any time, love that for you. Did not love it for me. It was giving not like other girls, and I'm gonna get with the bad boy teacher, and that's fine, but things just didn't make sense. Things didn't make sense. This magical world didn't make sense. There was the cringiest of cringe sex scenes. I was just like, oh, what is happening here? Just terrible. The character development of any of the characters was just very flat, one note. Nothing about this gave me, I want to know more about the characters. I want to know more about what's happening. And here's the thing. And Ray will tell you, I'm good for being I don't remember what just happened, and I'm going to make it up in my mind. And sometimes what I make up in my mind actually coincides with what happens in the book. But at no point in this book did the plot make sense. And even me filling in what I thought that I forgot didn't matter because the plot didn't matter. Basically, we just wanted to get this girl. What was her name? Violet? I don't remember. I do not remember what her name was. Maybe she had violet eyes. Maybe he had violet eyes. Do not recall, do not care, do not want to recall. But yeah, it was bad. It was bad. The dialogue was bad. The writing itself was just, no. But again, if you loved it, I love that for you. The next book on my list is Dating Dr. Dill by Nisha Sharma. I actually ended up DNFing this. I could not take all of the Taylor Swift references. I don't necessarily hate pop culture references, but when there's an abundance of them, I'm not a fan. And I'm not necessarily a Taylor Swift lover. I'm not a Taylor Swift hater, but it just wasn't giving me oh my gosh, all these Taylor Swift references. It was just oh my God, relax. And the way that this girl was acting from jump, I really did not want to continue. I think this was meant to be an enemies to lovers kind of romance where there's this guy, Dr. Dill, and he makes a comment that sets this woman off, and she's not with the shits, and she goes on to her sister's television show and basically lets him have it in the beginning. And little does she know that it is a guy that she had met previously who she felt ghosted her, but there were circumstances. And had they talked about this, miscommunication in the beginning, I hate it. I hate miscommunication, period. But already in the beginning, hate it. And then she just went off, and I was just nobody in their right mind would act like this. And then if you acted like this without just having a regular conversation with me, I'm not gonna really want to have a conversation with you afterwards. any kind of conversation. Also, the way she kept going on about every sweater vest that she owned and was wearing, and it was just like, girl, buy some new clothes. Buy some new clothes. Do not make sweater vest your personality. So I didn't get very far in that, and I have no regrets. Another one that is on my worst I was reading this for a vlog, and I will put all of the vlogs that I mentioned down below, but I was reading this for a vlog where I was reading my some childhood favorites, and one of them was the Sweet Valley High books, and I read the very first one, which was Double Trouble, and man, was it a terrible time. I don't recall it being so bad. There's two sisters, one complete bitch, the other complete pushover. And I just wanted the pushover to get a backbone, and I wanted the other one to get what was coming to her, and it just like never really happened. And that was frustrating. And then there was like slut shaming, fat shaming. There was just so much. And I don't remember if it was like from the 70s or the 80s. But it was just too much. Sometimes you gotta leave that nostalgia stuff in the past, because when you revisit it, it's never gonna hold up. I was reading some things for a vlog that's coming out, and so you'll get a little bit more of my thoughts on this one, but Big Swiss by Jen Began. I thought I was gonna have a weird girl fun time, and I did not. It's about a therapist transcriptionist who kind of becomes obsessed with one of the therapist's clients. She calls her Big Swiss. And one day she runs into Big Swiss out in the wild, and without telling Big Swiss, like, hey, I've actually been obsessed with you through your therapy sessions, they kind of start up a relationship. Now, let me tell you something about this relationship. At no point did I believe it. There was no chemistry. The main character just felt like very flat. And you know when people are written to be obnoxious just for the sake of being obnoxious? That's what she felt like. And then Big Swiss was just super flat. She gave nothing. And I was sad because when I first picked up this book, it was on a table with like Bunny and something else that I had read that was like weird girl-esque. And it was just like, if you love these, then you'll love this. So I was like, yes, absolutely. Did not love. Did not love. Moving on to my last worst book, and I'm glad that there were only really 5 that I could think of. But this last book is Feybound by Sarah El-Arifi. And I don't know whether she's just not the author for me, because I did not enjoy the first book in her other series, I DNF'd it, and I gave that a good old college try. Feybound, no. I was buddy reading this with Jess and Steph. I think I ended up just telling Jess what happened. Steph stuck along on the ride with me, but it was a terrible ride for me, actually. Nothing made sense. This whole time I'm picturing a desert or a jungle, unclear about which, unclear. It is both neither of them and both of them at the same time. The animals, it's a liger with horns, a moose cheetah. I don't know. There is romances happening, which I did not necessarily expect, and I don't necessarily hate that there was a romance, but at the same time, none of the romances felt like they fit together. There was one couple that was a little contentious with each other from the beginning, but like you knew that the girl liked this dude, and it was just like, okay, why are you being an asshole for no reason? Like, if you're gonna be an asshole, at least have a reason, you know what I mean? And then the other couple, I was just like, okay. I also think that was supposed to be an enemies to lovers bit, and it didn't work out. And then just the pacing of it it felt off. Like, we start off with a bang. We're like, okay, we're going into this thing being ambushed right in the beginning, and then we start traveling, and the way that the traveling sequence went, I couldn't tell if we were there for 3 days or 54. I don't know. I don't know, but I do know that I didn't have a good time, and I don't think I will be trying this author again. In fact, I think I've read this as a second chance for the author, and yeah, 2 chances is enough. I don't need to give them any more. So, ugh. Is it a moose cheetah? A liger with horns? I need someone to confirm what this animal is. I know I've seen a picture of the animal that they're riding on, but can also climb trees. So yeah, those are my worst books of 2024. I will not be thinking about them again. I may think about Feybound from time to time because, again, liger with horns, moose, cheetah, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Moving on to my most disappointing. Now, these are not necessarily, again, worst books that I read, but these are things that I maybe had expectations for and they didn't pan out. And that makes it sad for me because I really wanted to love them and enjoy them. First on that list, I have Guillotine by Delilah S. Dawson. I read Bloom earlier this year, and I thought that I would get something not necessarily Bloom-esque, but similar. And I did not. It was a novella about a girl who's dating this rich dude really to get to the dude's mother, and she goes to their like vacation home and hopes to spend time with the family and get in good graces with the mother. And sounds interesting, but then things turn really left really fast and people start getting murdered, which sounds like a great time for me, but actually wasn't. I think the comps were too compy, and so I knew exactly what the story was and how it was going to unfold and what was going to happen. Even at the end, I wasn't surprised by anything, and it's relatively short. It's a novella, and so maybe if I had had time to connect with any of the characters or even had like cared about them even in incidents, but I didn't. And so maybe that's why I didn't enjoy it and I didn't care who got murdered or when. I will say I did have a little giggle when there was like the first murder takes place, and I was just like, maybe it's like the first or the second, and I laughed. It was an uncomfortable laugh, but I did laugh. Probably shouldn't have. But yeah, that one, a little bit of a disappointment. Also a disappointment for me was The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. I was really leaning into weird things this year. And so every time I picked up something that was potentially going to be weird, I just went in with the highest of hopes. And maybe I should go in with low expectations for all of these. Big Swiss didn't do it for me. Guillotine didn't do it for me. The Eyes Are the Best Part did not do it for me. I thought I was really going to enjoy this because the main character is supposed to be a serial killer. Who doesn't love a serial killer? You know what I mean? She's a Korean-American teenager and she lives with her mom and her sister. Their dad has left, and I think he started a new family, but he's left and it's just them until the mom gets a boyfriend, George, who's this white guy, and he kind of has like an Asian fetish, and she's not really into George at all. I mean, for good reason. But I think some of the motivation behind what made Jiwon, that's the main character, behind what made her become a serial killer, some of the motivations were missing for me. Like, yes, George was annoying and there were other characters that kind of drove her to want to like hurt other people, but it just felt like they were very surface motivations and I couldn't really get behind it all. Again, it wasn't a bad book. I think on Goodreads I gave it like a 3 and said a 3.5. Upon reflection, it would probably just be a flat 3 for me. Again, not a terrible book, but I did have high expectations for it and it just fell a little short of what I was hoping for. The book on this list for me is Devils, Kills, Devils by Johnny Compton. This is his sophomore novel. The first one was The Spite House, and I really, really, really enjoyed it. The second one just didn't work out for me. This is another one I ended up DNFing. And the premise of this was that there's this woman, Sarita. She has a guardian angel who's always been there to kind of protect her at certain moments in her life until her wedding day, when she's like, she marries this guy. And the night of her wedding, they're in the hotel room. Her guardian angel comes in and just massacres the hell out of her now husband, and then he just leaves, and she's just like, what happened? What is going on? Why did you just kill my husband? And it's not like someone she just met and then they get married. It's not like a Vegas type thing. Like, she had been dating this dude for a while, no signs, and then on the day of her wedding, her angel comes, just pummels the hell out of, like, his head. It got graphic. And even in the beginning, I was just like, oh, what's going on here? But it just didn't pan out to much of anything. We were getting all of these different POVs, but nothing was really connecting. And I think I had gotten a good bit of the way in. I think I had gotten to like 50%, and still nothing was really clicking, nothing was connecting. And I just was like, I'm not having a good enough time to continue trying to figure out why the guardian angel killed the husband, what this has to do with a potential cult that is looking for like their next person. It was just too much, and it wasn't enough all at the same time. My fourth one is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I went into this thinking that this was going to be like an epic love story, because people have told me that this is an epic love story, and then I read it and review and talk about it. People were like, I don't know who told you that. People told me. And yeah, it just was not that. This is about two people who definitely need to seek help, mental help. I'm sure therapy wasn't a huge thing back there, since they were still on like lobotomies. Was this pre-lobotomy? Unclear. But yeah, Heathcliff, I don't know, this brooding dude that everyone's pining over, or not everyone, but like people are pining over, but Heathcliff, deranged. What was her name? Catherine? Was that her name? She was annoying. Yes, Catherine. She was annoying, and I don't know why he was obsessed with her. And she just was rude. She was kind of mean. Not very interesting. And so Heathcliff does so much to get revenge because Catherine basically rebuffed him. And I want to be like, bro, move on. Get a life. And he continues, so much so that like he ingrains this revenge into his children, and then like Catherine's offspring. Like, relax, go get a hobby, read a book, do something. Emily kind of failed me. She kind of failed me. Now, had I gone in knowing what this kind of really was, I might have enjoyed it better, because Heathcliff was nuts. He was deranged, and he did need help, and Catherine was a very unlikable character. But even with those things, I still could have gone in and enjoyed it, but because I was thinking it would be something else and it didn't turn out to be that, I was a little disappointed by it. And this is my big one. My big, most disappointing. Again, not the worst, but maybe because it almost could have put me in a slump. And it's not just one book, it's a series actually, and that is Stormlight Archives. I started off with Way of Kings, and I was just like, all right, this is cool. And then I got to Words of Radiance, and I was just like, okay, I'm still waiting to see it. I got halfway through Oathbringer, and I said, I cannot waste my time on things that I'm not having a good time with, especially things that are over 1,000 pages. Brandon, it doesn't have to be that long. If it takes you more than 1,000 pages to get across your story in every single book, and the pages increase with each book, we're not doing something right here. I did not connect with any of the characters. Cal, Shalon, Yasna, I was here for. I was like, You're kind of funny. What was the other? Dalinar, he was all right. Adolin, I was here for Adolin, but like he's not even a main. I feel like he's not a main person in the book. Like he comes in. And I got to book 3, and I was just like, I cannot tell you what the point of this is. And call me dumb. Maybe I'm dumb. It's very possible. And I just don't get it. But I didn't get it. I don't see the hype for it. I also don't think that listening to the audiobook helped me any, especially when there were voices like, Shalon had this thing, Digit, Fidget, I don't remember the name, Puzzle, I don't remember, cannot remember, I don't want to remember. But most grating noise. I don't want to hear it ever again in my lifetime. I don't want to read these books. Now, is this the end of me and Brandon? No, it's not, because I've enjoyed many a Brandon thing. I just don't think Stormlight was for me. And I really was trying to make fetch happen. I really, really was. And I couldn't. I will say, like, what probably kept me going was that with Way of Kings, me and Jess weren't reading this necessarily at the same time, but we were kind of reading this at the same time. And I think what kept me going was like, we were just having a good old time making fun of stuff, and that kept me going. But by the time I got to the second book, I was like, all right, I need to start getting invested, and I did not. And by the time I got to book 3, I was like, okay, this investment is not paying off. And so I had to let it go. And those are my most disappointing books. And so now we're going to move on to some better things. My most surprising things. Things that I really enjoyed. They weren't my favorite books of the year, but I really enjoyed them, and I did not expect to. We're going to start with Finley Donovan is Killing It. I read that at the top of the year, and I went in with low expectations. I'm not a mystery kind of girl. And I was just like, Finley's gonna be like this stupid character who's just getting into trouble. And it's just like, have you never seen an episode of like Dateline or How to Catch a Killer or, anything that's really gonna help you? And was she like that? Yeah, a little bit. She was a little dumb. But Vero, her nanny, really saved the day. There is someone who has mistaken Finley for a hit woman. In reality, she's an author. She's just writing a book. Someone overhears the plot of her next book and is just like, oh, she's a hit woman. I'm gonna hire her. And she tries with all of her might to give like the money back. She's like, I'm not actually gonna do this. And then things unfold, and it's just a silly, goofy time type of thing that I did not realize I was having a good old time. I actually read the second book, and I'm still having a good time, and I cannot wait to continue going. I think the 5th book in the series comes out in March, February. It comes out in the first quarter of 2025. And so I'm actually looking forward to that. I'm trying to read all of them before the next one comes out because I just want to read it. So who knew? Who knew that would be a mystery that I was into? Another one that was super surprising for me and also is low-key a disappointment is Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole. I am not a romantic girly, but I got my little hands on this. I was buddy reading this with 2 of my friends, and I was just like, oh, we're just gonna read it. And Big Daddy Luther, I love him. I love him so much. And so I was ready to go full steam ahead with Spark of the Everflame in the series, and because I knew that the author was going to be coming out with the 4th and final book in the series, and I was like, bet, I can binge them all back to back and get them. Then there was a pause. The author was like, hey, it's actually not coming out yet. And it's been like this since July, August. And at this point, I no longer care. Which is a shame because I was really having a good time with Big Daddy Luther, the king. Was he a king or like a prince? I can't remember. And Diem, who was dumb as bricks. But that's not the point. I'm not here for Diem and her dumb as bricksness and her finding out family secrets and truths and all that stuff. Although it was a good time. It was a good time. But Luther? But sadly for me, I probably will not pick up the rest of the series because I don't have time for the nonsense. Like, if the book's not ready, say the book isn't ready. Don't keep saying like, oh, it's coming. Like, no, let's not do that. Moving on. Another one that I was surprised by, and I'm not really sure why, but like Mayfly. I had a way better time than I thought I was going to have with Mayfly. I mean, the book is weird. Like, the cover is weird. There's eyeball, there's teeth, there's people teeth, there's all kinds of teeth. And I will say in the beginning of this, I was not sure what was happening. It took a little bit for it to get on the up and up and for it to get interesting for me. But I'm glad that I stuck with it, and I feel like the payoff for me was worth it. Was it the best book I've ever read? No. But was it a very good time? Yes, absolutely. We have Maeve Fly, who is working as a princess at a character theme park. And in the beginning, you're just like, okay, she really loves her job being this princess, but she's also a little antisocial. She has this one friend, and she's like stuck to glue with this friend. And the friend's brother comes along, and you're just like, okay, he's trying to get to know her, and she's just like, no, no new friends. I don't need that. But as time goes on, things get very weird, and I liked it. My next most surprising, Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. I did not think I was gonna go and have the time that I had. I was like, oh, okay, this might be a cute little classic, you know, have a good little, not a hee-haw, but a good old time. And when I tell you that Miss Ma'am, what's her name, Emma? What's her name, Emma? I don't know. Mrs. Bovary. Mrs. Bovary decides, I'm gonna marry this doctor because I'm tired of living this pathetic ass life. And if I marry a doctor, we're gonna be living it up in the countryside. I'm gonna have the best life. She gets married and she's like, oh, hold on, I'm actually very bored. And so she starts having an affair. And let me tell you, the affair, that's like neither here nor there, but the aftermath of the affair and the way like she responded to things that happened, it was so dramatic, and I loved it. I loved every second. Loved every second. And then this is probably my most surprising of all, and that is Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. I read the first one, which was Assassin's Apprentice, I don't know, maybe last year, the year before, and it was just okay. Fitz is still the most pitiful person I've ever come across in a book. Just sad and pitiful. But I continued on, and I was reading Royal Assassin, and it was just like, oh, okay, cool. And then I got to Assassin's Quest, and I said, hold on, I think I care about Fitz. This is the last one in the trilogy, so I won't say a whole lot about like what actually happens in it. But I was just like, oh, things are coming together, the plots are plotting, and yes, there was a lot of travel, and there was a lot of sitting around, and a lot of like just pondering on life and what things mean. But at the same time, I was like locked into this. I was. And I didn't think that would happen, especially after my experience with reading Assassin's Apprentice. And then when I read Royal Assassin, it was just like, okay, that's cool. But this one knocked my socks off. Had a grand old time. Wonderful. And now, what we've all been waiting for. My best of 2024. I have a list of 8 favorites and 2 honorable mentions. And the first honorable mention is Game of Thrones. This was a reread for me, and I typically don't reread things, although I have been compelled to reread things more recently because I've just been like, I want to revisit some of the things that I love. But I revisited a Game of Thrones. I was buddy reading this with a friend of mine who had never read it before, and man, coming back to this world was just so great. Being a part of everyone's like scheming and plotting and the relationships that were happening, and like just the political maneuvering of everything happening in this book was so fantastic. You've got all of these people fighting for the throne after the king has died, and man, what a time. And then another honorable mention, because I put it on my Storygraph, because I spent maybe 6-7 hours of my life invested in this at the beginning of the year, and that was Who the Fuck Did I Marry? Yes, Risa Tisa had me seated, okay? And I loved every minute of it. I was going back, summarizing this for the girls so that we would all know what was going on. And when she was talking about her husband, Legion, I was focused. I was like, what did this man do? How did we keep getting here? You didn't ask any questions? I know that that is not a book necessarily, but I'm gonna count it as an audiobook because I was in it. And Storygraph let me add it, and so I did. So those are my 2 honorable mentions. But then we're gonna get into the best of. This is more or less in an order. But coming in at number 8, we've got the Plated Prisoners series. I'm on book 4. I've been buddy reading this with Steph, and let me tell you, I think this may be our most successful buddy read that we've ever had, and that is, I don't know how it happened with this book, or this series, but it did. This is a King Midas retelling where King Midas can touch things, they turn to gold. And so he has a favorite. Her name is Orin, and she is gold touched. And everyone knows that she's Midas's favorite, and don't mess with Orin. And only Midas can talk to Orin, or like touch Orin and be with Orin. But Midas can also be with whoever he wants. He's the king. He also has a wife, and she does not necessarily like Orin, and neither do the king's other saddles, concubines. They all hate her because I guess they're just like, 1, they're jealous, and 2, they also think that she thinks she is better than them. Now Orin, I don't really care about Orin. I don't at all. Until I want to say like book 3, and I was just like, oh girl, you just got interesting. You just got a little interesting. And then she immediately didn't. But everything else, everyone else, I'm interested. There's like Queen Melina, which is Midas's wife. There's King Rot. He's got stuff going on. He's over there destroying things, rotting villages, people. We've got Commander Rip. There's just like a lot of things happening, right? And everyone's also battling for land and ownership of parts of this kingdom, which, because of course it's a fantasy, that's what they do here. And I'm just having a good old time. We're gonna continue probably in January when the next audiobook drops, and I'm so ready. I am so ready. I cannot wait until we get to the end of this series just to see how it all comes together and ends. I feel like Spark of the Everflame gave me that romantasy taste, and then I just went full in, and here we are. Here we are. On one of my best of lists. That's insane. Moving on. Number 7 is Rage of Dragons by Evan Winters. I buddy read this with Ray, and we really both enjoyed it. I love a good revenge story. I love anything where somebody's just like, you know what, I want my lick back, and then they go and get their lick back. I agree. 1000% yes. I can't remember all of the details of Rage of Dragons because I feel like it was longer ago when I read it, but I still remember being very surprised at times and wanting to like just know what's going to happen next. Who's he going to go after? What's he going to do? And will all of this pay off in the end? I think that Evan Winters is working on book 3, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, please. I really want it. I think me and Ray are also going to try to buddy read the second one this year. We haven't set our buddy read schedule, but Ray, this is... Put that on the list. And then number 6 is This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno. I read this at the beginning of the year, and the things that really stick with me are weird books, and This Thing Between Us was no stranger to being weird. It was this guy, he loses his wife in an unexpected way, and he thinks that it may be an entity that's messing with him, and that may have killed his wife. Now, was it? I don't know. Did the entity live in like an Alexa Echo type thing? Yeah, it did. And so have I plugged in my Alexa stuff. I haven't. It hasn't been plugged in all year. All year. And it wasn't necessarily because of this book, but I'm not saying it's not because of this book. So yeah, but I had a great time. The ending leaves a little room for interpretation, so I enjoyed that aspect, having conversations with people about what we thought that the ending could mean, what things in the book meant. Great time. Number 5 is kind of a series, but like kind of not. So it is Theft of Swords and Heir of Navran by Michael J. Sullivan, the first and the third of the trilogy. The second one was very middle book syndrome. It was very middle book syndrome, and I was just like, it could have been condensed. Actually, both of these could be condensed, honestly. But Royce and Hadrian have my heart now and forever. And the way that this series just came together had me not in tears, but like I felt like warm and fuzzies by the end of this. In the beginning, I wasn't really sure. They were just a little ragtag team of dudes off on a mission to save the king, and then it becomes a bigger story about trying to find the heir to this like magical king of the elves thing, and the adventures that they go on and the people that they meet and how they all come together in this series just really was an enjoyable time for me, and I loved it. I loved it. Again, second book, not so much. But these two, wonderful. I think Shoshana is doing, like, not a Michael J. Sullivan. I don't remember what it's called, but it's like a read-along for Rhaeria stuff. I don't remember what it's called, but I'm participating. I'll leave that information down below if you're interested in checking that out. Number 4, I don't have a physical copy of, and I feel like I should. It feels wrong that I don't, but that is Just Like Mother. I read this for a cult vlog, and this did not disappoint in the slightest. This is about a motherhood cult and 2 girls who escape that cult and then later on reconnect in life. And when they do reconnect, it's just a whirlwind of emotions, of things that are going on. Like, are cults being revived? Are they not? How so? Like, who's in on it? How far does this go? It was just so good. At every turn, there were things that I like wanted to like punch the main character in the face and be like, ask questions. And of course, nobody ever asks questions. No one ever asks questions. We just go with the flow, and then we get into trouble. And then it's just like, oh, I don't know how we got here. I do. You didn't ask questions. And even if you didn't ask questions, when you got that weird feeling in your tummy and things didn't feel right, you should have left. Always trust your gut. Unless you have chronic tummy issues and you can't always trust your gut, then don't trust your gut. That's terrible advice, either way, but you'll figure it out. You've gotten this far. So yeah, that was Just Like Mother. I had such a good time. I was so glad I read it as part of my cult vlog. Ugh, what a time. What a time. Next on this list, I've got another Robin Hobb. I buddy read this with Jess. Again, kind of. We both read this and Way of Kings like back to back with each other. So like I was reading this, she was reading Way of Kings, then we like swapped. But we both had a very good time with this. I really love this. Let me tell you, I love a good family drama. I love a good family drama. And this is nothing but family drama on sentient ships. Even the ships were in on the drama. I don't think that there was any person in this book that I liked. Nope, can't think of one. First of all, you know that your author hates you when everyone has like a fantasy-ish name. We've got Kefria, we've got Wintro, we've got Malta, Alethea, and then we've got Kyle. Kyle is a dick. I hate him. I do. I hate Kyle. I don't know what the other 2 books in the series hold, but I hope that one of the things in the series is that Kyle dies. Yes, I do. That's what I hope. But yeah, I cannot wait to see where this goes. There's so many things that I'm hoping for some of these characters. I'm hoping for a lot of downfalls. I'm hoping for people to get their comeuppance. I am really hoping, like I said, for Kyle to die. It's the only solution. There's no redemption for him. There's no other solution. He's got to go. But I think me and Jess are going to continue on with the series because we both need to know what happens. And when I say that I'm surprised, I'm color me shocked. I went from Assassin's Quest straight here, and I just like, I can't even speak. I had so much fun with this, and I think I read this super fast, this 800-page behemoth, and what a time. What a time. Robin really got me. I wasn't sure in the beginning, but she really came through. Number 2 on this list, I have A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams. This was one of the first books I picked up in the new year, and this was just a beautiful love story. A soft, magical realism, black girl love story. And I love that. I love that. Sometimes we need the whimsical. This tells about Ricky Wilde, who has left her family's funeral dynasty in Atlanta and embarks on a new adventure in New York, starting as a florist, which kind of feels weird because, like, your family owns a funeral business, you're a florist. I feel like y'all could have made this work. Anyway, that's not the point. She meets this guy who is very mysterious, and they kind of feel like they have this connection. They're just like, they don't understand how they have this connection. But as the story unfurls, you get a little bit more of his backstory. You find out why they are coming to each other, and I just really loved it. It was just soft and beautiful. I think I cried at the end. I was weeping. I was just like, Tia girl, why would you do this? Why would you do this? And now I did this for a Tia Williams vlog because I had read 7 Days in June the year prior, and so I wanted to know, like, do I really like her? And yes, the answer is yes. So she's now an auto-buy author for me. Like, I just want to read everything that she puts out. And now we get to my favorite book of the year. Of the year. And if you've been around any length of time in the past year, or if you've caught me like on a sprint, or maybe like one of Jess's sprints, because I'm there sometimes, you'll know what this book is. And it's so funny because I did not have a physical copy of this until recently when Ray got it for me. And thank you, Ray, because she was just like, it just feels wrong that you do not have a copy of this. And she is correct. And it is Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. This book has been in my mind since I read it. This was kind of a buddy read with Steph, kind of. And I think we both felt the same way about it at first. We were just like, do I hate this? And then the more I thought about it, it was like, I actually love this. This was so deliciously weird. This is like weirder than Bunny weird, and I really love Bunny. But this right here, this is about Rosemary. She stumbles across Ash at a farmer's market. Ash is at a stall selling like soaps, cupcakes, candles, plants, I think. And Ro becomes a little obsessed with Ash. She's never felt this way about another woman before, and she gets these feelings. She like wants to see her at every farmer's market, and then they kind of start to develop a relationship, and things get really, really sinister and weird from there. And at the beginning, you're just like, maybe this is just a one-off, and then it continues, it escalates, and by the time we got to the end of this book, I was just like, girl, Delilah, why did you think of this? What was going through your brain? And you said, let me write this down. And you wrote it down. And I mean, thank you, because yes, but also Bloom has my heart from now and forever. As soon as I opened this and I saw what it was, I immediately wanted to pick it up and read it again because it was just such a good time. And I never felt that way about wanting to read something that I had literally read in the same year. Like, I don't do that. I don't. And I really want to reread this, like right now, actually, as we speak. But I'm not going to because I've got some other things I need to. But I trust I will be revisiting this soon. Let me tell you. I think about this all the time. There's so many ways that I can reference it. I think about beating a raccoon. Not me. I'm not going to do that. And if you're just like, Robin, what are you talking about? You need to read it. You need to read it. One of the best, strangest experiences I've had. And I'm still chasing that high. Every weird book that I've picked up since is trying to chase a Bloom high. And I don't know if it exists. I don't think that anything will ever compare. But one day, maybe I will find something. But that's all I had for you guys. That was my best, my most disappointing, my worst, my most surprising, all of the things. I hope you guys had a good time. If you loved any of these, even if I didn't, let's talk about it. What were some of your favorites of the years? Let me know down below because maybe they'll be one of my favorites for next year. Maybe. So let's talk about it down below in the comments, and until next time. Bye.